Hello, East Goshen. Hope you're having a great Friday so far and enjoying the sunshine today. We are back to finish out James chapter 4. And it seems like the Tuesday-Friday schedule is working better as far as my schedule goes for filming. So we're going to do this for next week as well. Tuesday, Friday, try to switch it up and see if that's a little more consistent, just so that we can make sure we're on a routine together. But James chapter 4, we're going to wrap this up. Just a few verses here at the end, verses 13 through 17. So just a few verses to wrap up. And James is talking about our boasting about our futures. And this is reminiscent of what we talked about in our series through the book of Ecclesiastes. James says our life is a mist. It is a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes. And then he ends with the verse I want to focus on for today, which is chapter 4, verse 17, which says, "If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them." So it's interesting that he puts this verse at the end of this phrase at the end of this passage, because he's talking about this urgency of living. He's talking about that God's plans may be that your life is short and you never know when it's going to end. And so at the very conclusion of this passage, he then says, if you know the good that you're supposed to do and you don't do it, that is a sin. And so if we're supposed to be doers of the word, not merely hearers, as he says early on in his letter, and we're supposed to take seriously the word of God, and we don't know when our life could come to a conclusion, whether it's going to be a long life or whether it's going to be short, we ought to have urgency in the way that we live and the way that we choose to do good to others. Throughout this letter, he's talked about fighting for the marginalized and oppressed and bringing justice to the world, serving those who are in need. And so then he looks at his audience and says, you never know when your life could end, so don't delay doing right to others. Don't delay what God has called you to. If you know the good that you ought to do, if the scriptures have confirmed God's purposes in your life, how you ought to treat people, how you ought to live every day, then do it. If you hold off on it, you never know when your life's going to end. And if you fail to do the right thing, then it is a sin. These are sins of omission, not doing what God has called us to. And so for today, as we reflect on these verses, ask yourself, what has God called me to do? Maybe specifically, but more generally, how has he called me to love my neighbor? What are the things that I am leaving undone? Because if you know what you ought to do and you fail to do it, then it is a sin. It is the sin of omission. So get about the work of the kingdom today. How can you live this in your life today? What is the task God is calling you to right now, and how can you live out that calling here and now, taking steps today to make sure that you are faithful to what he has told you to do? Thank you as always for joining me in our weekly devotional videos. I will see you on Tuesday for the next video. Hopefully I'll see you on Sunday for service, whether in person or online, as we continue our journey through the book of 1 Corinthians together. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the sunshine today. Hopefully it'll be nice tomorrow, and I will see you next time.